Hi, my name is Joe Langlois. I'm president of the Fort Rodman Historical Association, and with me is Bob Bromley, who's vice president and curator of the Military Museum. We're currently in the Military Museum at our American Revolutionary exhibit, and the reason we're talking to you today is that we have a fairly large encampment of both British soldiers and colonial or American soldiers. And this is an important recognition of, in part, the 350th anniversary of the founding of Dartmouth. But there is more that can be said about what took place here during the Revolution, and we're going to give you a little information about what is going to be happening here today. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to Bob Bromley.
Hello. Today what you'll be seeing is our third American Revolution reenactment down here, our first two being in 2007 and 2010. We have people from all over the Northeast, including Canada, that have come down to participate. It is called a reenactment because a battle reenactment will occur, or a battle scenario will occur. There are camps on the outside, both the American, French, as well as the British, throughout the park, depicting camp life during the 1700s. What you'll be seeing during the reenactment is the maneuvering and strategy that was employed with the shoulder-to-shoulder warfare of that time period, including the size of the cannons as well as the muskets that you'll see. It was given for a large volume of projectiles to go out and not so much of accuracy. So the men and women that are standing there doing it, showing that how they got into close proximity and battled during that time period. As Joe has stated, that this is part of the 350th. During the American Revolution, New Bedford was actually a group of villages, part of the town of Dartmouth. And in 1778, this point here was completely surrounded by the British as they came in September of 1778. And split the fleet, half the fleet going into Clark's Cove, the other half going into New Bedford Harbor now over towards Fairhaven. The peninsula did have a small contingent of Minutemen. Most of the area men who were part of the militia had been sent to either New London, Connecticut, which had just been attacked, or over to Newport, which they were expecting the next major British raid. The British decided to avoid Newport, go to Martha's Vineyard, come to New Bedford to pay New Bedford back, because New Bedford was the hotbed of the privateering and fledgling United States Navy. For most of the Revolutionary War, all of the ports on the East Coast were British occupied, from New York City all the way down to Charleston. New Bedford and Boston, as well as Newport in the latter part of the American Revolution, were the only ports available for the American Navy and privateers. It was very easy for the privateers to operate out of New Bedford, tacking the British supply ships coming in from England, going to New York City. They would hit the ships just outside of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and then if they could capture the ships, tow them here into the harbor. One of the most famous individuals that came out of here in doing just that was John Paul Jones, who became the father of the Navy. His first base of operation was here in the city. Many of his prize ships were brought in. By 1778, New Bedford had so many ships here, it became a target for the British. They came in to pay back the privateers, to try to burn all the ships that were captured, burn the privateer ships, and then to go after the different residents who were supporting the privateers or the American cause. So when the British landed, they marched up through the city. People who were loyalists or Tories at the time period would point out who was supporting the American Revolution. Their house would be ransacked, burned, their businesses burned, and in many cases their wharfs and piers with the warehouses were also burned. Many of the ships were set ablaze, which then began to float out and burn the rest of the area down. It took approximately 50 years for New Bedford to recover from that raid, and it led to the mindset that New Bedford, as it became the whaling capital of the world and one of the richest cities in the world, needed to have better fortifications protecting the harbor. And eventually, the stone fort that you'll see later on today came to be to protect New Bedford because of what happened here with the British in 1778.
So you've gotten quite a history that's brought you almost up to the Civil War. I'm not going to continue it, but I do want to highlight today there will be a battle, as Bob said, but we also have a Highland band that is coming, and they will do a performance on the lawn between the fort and the bay, and a performance inside the fort. And we're hoping that in the tradition of the British military, that they will lead the British reenactors onto the field of battle. So it's going to be a very, very good day. And for those that come to observe it, it'll be a special day that they'll remember for quite a long time. Thank you.
Well, my name is Eric Travail. I'm the captain of the 13th Continental Regiment. We're also known as the Rehoboth Minutemen or Timothy Walker's Regiment. The original regiment was actually formed in 1774 as the Rehoboth Minutemen / Timothy Walker's Regiment. We participated in the American Revolution from 1775, shortly after the Battle of Lexington and Concord. We were up at the Siege of Boston. We were not at Bunker Hill, but we were in Roxbury to help defend Roxbury from possibly an attack by the British. When Washington took over the troops up there, he formed us, along with two other regiments, Brewer's and Reed's Regiment, and formed us into the 13th Continental Regiment, and that's who we portray today in reenactments and in local events around the area, and then also within the Continental Line, which is a large organization that does encampments and reenactments for the American Revolution up and down the East Coast. Some of the battles that the 13th Continental Regiment were in was Battle of New York, Pelham Bay. We were crossed with Washington to Trenton and into Princeton. Shortly into the beginning of 1777, the unit disbanded, and then we fell into different groups, as most groups did once their service and enlistment was up. What we do now is we portray the militia from the Rehoboth area, from the Massachusetts area. Rehoboth encompassed a number of cities in Massachusetts that we know of today, like Attleboro, North Attleboro, some of the other areas in Rhode Island as well. And our members are made up of members from all those different areas from Massachusetts. And we portray the militia. There is no real set clothing, although most of us do wear these, what they call bounty coats, which were sent up to us and made by the town's folks from the Rehoboth area and that area and Attleboro area. When our members were up there for the Siege of Boston, they received these bounty coats in lieu of payment, so hence their nickname, bounty coats. So that's really the main clothing that most of us wear, although as militia, not everybody received these coats, but there's a good mix of different clothing. So with militia, you're kind of given a little bit of freedom as far as your type of clothing and your style and stuff like that, how you want to portray yourself, how you want to look, maybe your background of where you're coming from and what you're doing. Tactics-wise, we're militia. We fight. We can fight in large groups, in 2 ranks. We can break it up into sections, fight by sections. We can fight independent, taking a knee and independent fire. It depends on the event, the grounds that we're on, what we plan on doing. Depends on the officers in charge and what they want us to do. We love independent firing and love just going at it with the Brits. We'll take on any of them. We'll take them all on. Just give them to us. We'll take them all on. But we have a lot of fun. We are always encouraging new members to join. Families. You don't have to be from the Rehoboth area. You don't have to be from Massachusetts. We have members from all over. We do events all over the place: New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania. So if you're out there and you're interested, look us up, 13thContinentalRegiment.com. We're online. We're on Facebook as well. Like most groups, we're always looking for new members. Like I said, if you have a love for history, you don't have to be a history major, but if you have a love for history in this period of time, this is a great hobby to get involved in. You learn a lot when you're in this hobby from a lot of different people, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think you'll have a great time. It's a great learning opportunity for yourself and any other family members that might be interested. So look us up and contact us, and hope to see you out there.
Greetings, fair citizens of Fort Taber and surrounding neighborhoods. I'm Captain Gardner, commanding officer and of His Majesty's 54th Regiment of Foot. And we're here today to celebrate Revolutionary War weekend here at Fort Taber, Fort Rodman. And you've caught me at a downtime while I am resupplying cartridges to our men, so that way when we fight in this afternoon's battle. But a little bit of history, if I can back up a little bit. The 54th Regiment of Foot are one of the many regiments that was sent here to New England to suppress the seditious rebels and get them back into line and be honest, good, loyal citizens for His Majesty, King George III. Our particular regiment was chosen to come over here in the year 1776. And we arrived in Newport, Rhode Island in the fall of that year. And during that time, we made ourselves quite comfortable. And the following year, in 1777, in the spring, we found it necessary to go out and find supplies. So we marched ourselves into the town of Bristol and Warren, Rhode Island, and helped ourselves. And at the same time, burned half of those communities to the ground. And thus started the reputation of the 54th as being a bunch of village burners. And during the course of our history, several companies of this regiment were attached to actually come visit this fair community. What year would that have been? 78? 78. In 1778, to actually visit this community and also assist in finding supplies. And as I'm told, members of this same regiment were on that side of the river and marched inland and actually had some sort of skirmish or a fight with some of your local militia. Regrettably, I'm told that there are a couple of my actual soldiers that are possibly buried up there in their cemetery. So, as you can see, we're part of the history of this community, as many. And our particular regiment is actually based out of Connecticut, where the final site of our last action was, and that was the burning of New London, Connecticut, and the destruction of Fort Griswold. Our history dictates that our particular regiment were also known as the Flamers. Back in that day, it meant that we were ones responsible for burning things to the ground. And we have a very good track record of a number of seaports and villages that our particular regiment had the honor of visiting during those 8 years of rebellion.
Hello, I'm Rick Lincoln. I am the commander of the Regiment Bourbonnais reenacting group. We reenact the Regiment of Bourbonnais, which was was the premier regiment in the Comte de Rochambeau's expeditionary force to America. The king sent an expeditionary Le Roi sent a expeditionary force to America to support the Americans in their strife to be free from the British, who we didn't like. What happened was that after the French and Indian War, we had completely re-equipped our army, and we had new tactics, weapons, and materials. We wanted to test them out in the field. It was a perfect opportunity. So he sent some of his best units equipped with the latest equipment to see how they would fare against the British in the field. We landed in 1780 at the village of Newport, which had recently been evacuated by the British and left in disrepair. Wintered over to bolster up the town, to build reinforcements and fortresses and help rebuild the town, and to help some of our troops, over 2/3 of whom were sick, recover from the long sea voyage. The next spring, we debarked in boats to Providence, where we formed up into 2 divisions, which marched overland to New York City, made a feint assault on New York City to fool the British into thinking it was going to be a siege, went around the side of New York City to Baltimore, where we broke into 2 columns. One went down the Chesapeake Bay in boats. Another group went overland to Yorktown, where Cornwallis was holed up for the winter to recover. At the same time, a French fleet came up from the Indies and blockaded the bottom mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, and was also manned by 5,000 more French troops. The siege of Yorktown is a matter of history. After that, we wintered over in Williamsburg, Virginia. The next spring, we marched all the way back to Boston, those that did not go on boats to the Indies, where we debarked for either France or the West Indies.
September 1778, as part of British operations in the American Revolutionary War, Major General Charles Gray raided the Massachusetts communities of New Bedford, Fairhaven, and Martha's Vineyard. The raid was one of the first in a series between 1778 and 1781, executed by the British against American coastal communities. On September 5th and 6th, Gray raided New Bedford and Fairhaven, only encountering significant resistance in Fairhaven. His troops destroyed storehouses, shipping, and supplies in New Bedford, where they met with light resistance from the local militia, and did less damage at Fairhaven. Where militia resistance had time to organize, he then sailed for Martha's Vineyard, which was undefended. Between September 10th and 15th, its residents surrendered, as well as most of the island's weapons. In New Bedford, 11 houses, 21 shops, 34 ships were destroyed, along with goods and naval stores. Estimates of the damage done there and at Fairhaven ranged from $30,000 to nearly $165,000, most coming in damage to ships and goods. The residents of Martha's Vineyard petitioned for compensation in excess of $30,000 due to the losses incurred in the raid. General Clinton's successor, Sir Guy Carleton, made payment of $5,000 against these claims.
Mark! Anna! Ooh! Hey! Hey! Forgot your lunch. Hey! Hey!
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you.
I look up to a lot of the older heads, you know, the innovators, the heads of the art movements of the past. They kept it really edgy, and like a lot of the Latin American muralists and Latin American artists, and their styles were very unique and new to their time. You know, somewhat controversial, but that's who I look up to mainly. Personally, I'm very excited about going to college. It's something new and it's something different than what I'm used to. I'm definitely going to be a little out of my element, but that's what makes it so exciting, is that, you know, it's something fresh. Well, there's so many opportunities that I think I could miss out on if I didn't go, you know? Getting into college takes planning and vision. You know, it's just like when I take a brick wall and turn it into a canvas for my art. Paintings help me realize that I've got what it takes.
I first started skating with my friend. He had an extra board, and then he just gave it to me, and I've been skating ever since. Well, when I don't land a trick and I have my mind set on something, and I'm not getting what I want, I just keep going for it until I get it right. My mom, she didn't go to college, so she wants me to experience that whole thing, and so I could end up getting like a good job. I think to get into college, I'll have to be determined, just like when I want to get a new trick, and skating's helped me realize I've got what it takes.
I got no balls for losing. Shocking.
Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear.
We just buzzed.
Just buzzed? You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right, this isn't happening. He'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shotgun?
What if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed today. Learn how at ready.gov.